going to demonstrate you joining two wires together using soldering techniques. Some people might believe it's not a big deal and everybody could do it. Yes, everybody could do it, but those people who don't use the right technique will end up with improper soldering job called soldering. By the way, joining wires in electronics field is quite different than electrical field. In this video I'm going to be concentrated on electrical wire joining. And in some cases splices could be used joining two wires together, but in this here I am going to use method of soldering to join wires together. This is a soldering station. You can use just a regular soldering gun with a flat tip, as you can see in the picture. And this is solder wire for your job. And these are samples of heat shrink tubes to insulate your joints. And this is a heat gun to shrink your heat shrink tubes. And these are samples of the wires. These are nicely stripped wires ready to use. About quarter of an inch from the end is good. As you can see in this video, I have a homemade wire holder jig that can help me to do my job nicely, because it's going to hold the wires together, the stripped parts of the wire together, me to solder them. But also if you just get a piece of flat board, wooden board, that you can put your wires on it and together and hold the edges against each other and then solder them. First you have to strip your wires from both ends and then tin them. Then put your wires nicely, as you can see in the video, against each other and adjust them to be sticking together, those stripped ends. It's always good to apply a bit of extra flux, which is going to help to join better, and then solder it. And then you're going to need to pass your heat shrink through the wires. Before that, it's better to get rid of the sharp ends if there is any. It's always good to check with your fingers to see if there is any sharp edges, and then file them and nicely and get rid of the sharpness, because that can poke the heat shrink and short them to other components or wires. So using heat gun you can shrink your heat shrink tube, and then it's ready to go. As you can see here, I have got the red wire at one side shorter and at the other side longer, and the same for the black wire, and that is for keeping the wire joints away from each other to prevent of possible shorting. When you are joining twin wires like this, you first pass your heat shrinks, the heat shrink that is going to go over both joints, and then pass your small heat shrinks to join the wires together, which one is, as you can see, one side is longer and shorter at the other side. Sometimes when your heat shrink is too close to your joints, it can shrink and cause you trouble. So it's better to attach something like you can see alligator clip I'm using here for just preventing of heat shrink tube to be shrunk. And in here the alligator clip, which is modified a bit, is acting like a heat sink. Again, as you can see, I'm adjusting my wires to sit nicely together, and using my holder and solder it, and do the other side the same way. Again, I'm passing heat shrink, piece of heat shrink, and also putting my alligator clip to act as a heat shrink, act as a heat sink, and not let the heat shrink to be shrunk. And putting wires together again at the other side, and solder them together. As I said, always it is good to use a bit of extra flux for joining easier and nicer. And the soldering job is done here. And I'm going to pull my heat shrinks over the joints, and if there's any sharpness at the edges, the joints, I file them and get rid of the sharpness. And now I'm going to shrink both heat shrink tubes and nicely insulate the joints. Using heat gun, watch for your fingers not to burn your fingers. And you pass the bigger heat shrink, longer heat shrink, which it is going to cover your whole job of insulating your joints, and shrink it. And in here you can see, the job of joining twin wires together nicely has been done. In here I'm going to show you how to join a piece of wire to PCB board. So what you can do is you just strip your wire and tin it and pass through the hole that you want to join, and then solder it nicely from the other side, from the back side. And at the back side you are going to have an extra wire, of course, to be left that you are going to trim it nicely, and that's it. That's as easy as that. Solder wires to a component. You're going to do the same way as I showed joining wires together. First you tin your legs of your component, and also you cut your wires and make them ready, and strip them, tin them. And hold with your hand your wire, and the other side my holder is holding component nicely firmly, and then solder it. As you can see, I'm putting my wires and from the top side over the component's leg nicely, and bring gently my solder gun tip there and solder the wire to the legs of the component. Then to insulate it, I'm going to cut pieces of heat shrink and pass them through the wire and shrink them. When you are joining bunch of wires parallel at the same direction together, pass a piece of heat shrink to just to hold them together. Apply extra solder to form a little bump at the joint. Pass a piece of heat shrink about half of an inch in length and shrink it. The bump you have made already with solder won't let the heat shrink tube to slip out. And these are two types of putting the wires together, which are, I guess, they are a bit bulky and longer. And you're going to see a bad soldering sample here, which is called cold soldering. And also at the end of your job, you better tin your soldering tip and keep it for your next job. And here is the end of my video. Thanks for watching.